are cushion running shoes with stability features available out there on the market, the trend of running related injuries may go on indefinitely, leading to more and more runners consistently grappling with muscle and tendon soreness and consistently sidelined with an injury. I think there is really enough convincing conclusions out there that barefoot running really puts you in a better position to essentially master good biomechanics. It helps deliver more broad-based mechanical growth and improvements, enabling you to effectively uphold a more capable forefoot strike landing, as you are unlikely to heel strike when you run barefoot because it really hurts to land heel first in the absence of underfoot padding or protection. There's also been many detailed studies on how the raw sensory input at the bottom of the foot when you run barefoot can have a marked influence on improving foot strike mechanics. Running barefoot was also found to encourage a lighter, more responsive forefoot strike landing pattern as compared with running in traditional running shoes. And that's one of the most fascinating aspects about barefoot running, is that it really does put you in a much better position to help you quickly and effectively adjust your landing intensity of the foot. Humans really seem to have an innate reflexive natural capacity to land more lightly with a forefoot strike landing pattern and have a more rapid foot removal, foot leg retraction, or withdrawal off the ground during barefoot running, which collectively are much safer mechanical attributes strongly linked to low impact forces. I think we're at a point now in the scientific research where most researchers can certainly agree with high confidence that running barefoot definitely leads to substantial biomechanical gains, enabling our biomechanics to be put to more productive use and can really become a driver of safer mechanical strategies, because running barefoot naturally sets up an ongoing positive feedback loop between the mind and the feet, which helps you learn to pin down a more precise yet light, softer forefoot strike landing pattern, which involves landing ahead of the arch and also augments or improves the effective increased knee flexion or knee bend when the barefoot strikes the ground, which also provides an added layer of comfort and impact deflection. To that end, let me start by stating the obvious. If you watch most East African runners run, now most of these runners come out of Kenya and Ethiopia, you are actually seeing the pure product of what running barefoot during childhood can really do from a performance standpoint, as most of the runners from Kenya and Ethiopia spent many years growing up barefoot, certainly running barefoot, sometimes running up to 10 kilometers a day without running shoes, which certainly accounts for much of their biomechanical advances as compared with traditionally shod populations. This is the context in which we should view the performance benefits of barefoot running, because I feel, and I think most researchers and many coaches may agree, that barefoot running at an early age from day one is really where the mechanical efficiency of most East African distance runners started. Most East African distance runners really do have an outsized performance capacity on account of very good, highly efficient running mechanics built up through many years of running barefoot during very key stages of development. Many East African distance runners retain their learned barefoot running biomechanics from childhood to running as adults in running shoes. For example, they carry most of the barefoot running influenced mechanics, such as forefoot striking, deep knee bending, whereby most East African runners really bend both their knees during running. They appear to sink down more in their stride. They also have more torso rotation, especially the East African women runners. They also tend to lean a little slightly forward to the point where their head is aligned above initial foot strike position. Now, these mechanical traits are very evident in most barefoot runners, and I think it's a very practical assessment to say that the exceptional running performance of most East African distance runners may be largely driven, in large measure, by the mechanical gains from having ran barefoot for so long during critical stages of human development. With that said, I truly think it's naive to believe that wearing traditional running shoes, which are running shoes that have tremendous amounts of thick, cushioned, foamy, squishy materials, especially under the heel, they're stiff in structure, and they also have motion control stability reinforcements. I think it's naive to believe that wearing these types of running shoes, especially from a very early age, leads to better performance opportunities for running, but rather, truth be told, more and more research is behind the idea that cushioned traditional running shoes drains away foot strength and function. They are a threat to landing stability during running, and fundamentally, traditional running shoes may be a costly strategic mistake that can essentially undermine biomechanical efficiency, leading to high-risk, injurious, consequential outcomes in the form of forceful heel striking, poor knee, hip, and upper body mechanics. Now, in that regard, one thing we can be sure of is traditional running shoes may certainly be one of the dominant causes of most running-related injuries, on the basis that a forceful heel strike landing of the foot coupled with a locked knee joint that's unbent at touchdown are really symptoms of running in cushion-heeled traditional running shoes. From this vantage point, it should make us feel more optimistic about going barefoot for both running and walking more often for yourself, but to let your kid run barefoot and in minimalist running shoes so they can essentially get a head start on harnessing more adequate mechanical efficiency at an early age, as going barefoot is a natural training ground that enhances the reflexive skill sets needed for low impact, high efficiency running. Going barefoot will certainly improve how kids handle running and can really give them an enhanced capacity to maintain sufficient, efficient biomechanics and strong feet as well as strong ankles well into adulthood. I think the most fundamental message to really remember is that as a child grows older, if they learn to run barefoot during the critical stages of development, they will retain the neuromuscular strategies required to run more properly on the forefoot with safer hip and knee joint mechanics. From this, the paradigm view is that the emergent property of the collective mechanical outputs of barefoot running results in less injury, mainly because reflexive forefoot strike landing and the reflexive rapid foot removal or withdrawal of the foot from the ground seems to kick in better when barefoot running versus running in shoes. The forefoot strike running technique will essentially be more locked in or hardwired in the neuromuscular system with more exposure to barefoot running at an early age, similar to most East African distance runners. From this may take form of having more of a performance advantage because the use of a forefoot strike landing pattern during running, especially a forefoot strike landing pattern that is born from having ran barefoot from a very early age in life, may be significantly less taxing on the muscles of the leg as compared with heel strike running in heavy cushioned running shoes. This is how kids who grow up running barefoot may be more mechanically efficient as adult runners and may be more injury proof as compared with kids who wear running shoes from day one. And again, I really hate to sound like a broken record, but one point of contention that is famously coming up in the scientific literature is that cushion-heeled traditional running shoes puts long-term constraints on foot health and function, whereby improvements in running mechanics will only go so far if your feet are weak. So now you have weak feet and inadequate, uncoordinated, misguided biomechanics, which may compound into performance setbacks. Luckily, the amplification of sensory clarity on the sole of the bare foot during barefoot running triggers a heightened perception of awareness of your forefoot strike engagement, which essentially makes barefoot running a strategic necessity that can effectively unseed bad mechanical habits and produces more capable, more durable feet. And always, always, always bear in mind that running shoes are one of the least integrated components during early childhood in East African countries, and that the best distance runners in the world from East Africa have already carved out exceptional exceptionally efficient biomechanics at an early age, which I think is tied to their stellar performance. One thing also worth mentioning is that in shod populations, one of the common running related injuries among young runners are ankle ligament injuries, whereby, according to the scientific literature, one of the official contributing factors to ankle ligament injuries in young runners is traditional running shoes. That is, running shoes with a raised, padded heel that are very stiff in structure. I came across a few studies which are linked down below in the description box, which found that cushion-heeled traditional running shoes, which are also running shoes well known to encourage a heel strike landing pattern during running, the same running shoes were found to interfere with or dismantle midfoot mechanics and ankle mechanics in young runners during the propulsive phase of running, whereby the midfoot and ankle mechanical disruptions imposed by cushion-heeled traditional running shoes was really found to be a dominant risk factor for ankle ligament injury. Basically, when you run in a shoe where there's always a giant wedge under the heel separating the heel from the ground, and when the overall shoe structure is very incredibly stiff, it would be expected that some mechanical variables may become out of sync, which of course, having the heel elevated off the ground is certainly an unusual position of the heel, because we as humans evolved to be barefoot, to walk barefoot, to run barefoot, to hike barefoot, not wear a thick giant wedge angling the heel up high off the ground. It's this configuration of the foot or heel in traditional cushion running shoes that can really set the stage for an injury. Therefore, the proximity of the heel relative to the ground is key in preventing the vast majority of running related injuries. In other words, you want the heel oriented in a natural position, like when you're barefoot, not as in the position the heel sits in when you run and walk in high-heeled running shoes. This is why these kinds of running shoes are often linked to ankle injuries and knee injuries. The researchers found that on approaching the propulsive phase of running in young runners, the ankle was in an unstable position, incapacitated because of the heel elevation from the heeled running shoe. Also, natural coordinated midfoot motions essential to landing stability reinforcement was reduced when kids ran in cushion-heeled traditional running shoes, which in turn projected greater mechanical stress on the ankle joint, making the ankle joint increasingly vulnerable to injury. Just for a side note, during running, the foot-ankle complex acts as a wineless mechanism during the propulsive phase of running, which ultimately helps add more effective spring to your step, whereby certain midfoot motions are crucial and important for the arch and the plantar fascia to store elastic or potential energy needed for efficient forward propulsion or spring during running. Similarly, MTP joint motion. The MTP joint is where the big toe connects to the foot. The MTP joint also plays an important role in contributing to acting as part of the wineless mechanism of the foot during the propulsive phase of running. And by doing so, the MTP joint helps encourage and enrich elastic energy or potential energy storage within the Achilles tendon. This is how certain components of the foot, such as midfoot structures, as well as the MTP joint, work together as a functional unit to help the arch and the plantar fascia of the foot, as well as the Achilles tendon, accumulate greater elastic energy storage needed for more optimal running efficiency. Furthermore, I really want to underscore that the more freedom of the natural range of motion, like in barefoot running or wearing minimalist running shoes, which are shoes that are incredibly flexible, that have a very wide toe box, that enable these components of the foot, their natural movement patterns, natural flexing, natural bending, and natural splaying movement patterns, easy economical gains against hard running, long distance running, short sprints, endurance trail running can be won, because the obvious reason is in barefoot or minimalistic conditions, the foot is working in its natural capacity at a more primitive level without any mechanical interferences from the traditional running shoe, where the MTP joint and midfoot can barely budge in these shoes. the MTP joint and the midfoot, along with the overall foot, has very limited mechanical mobility, which in turn makes certain structures within the foot to become powerless in their natural capacity in making mechanical contributions to the windlass mechanism of the foot ankle complex during running that is so vital for momenting good running economy. Because elastic energy return and storage may become diminished in the arch of the foot in the Achilles tendon when wearing a traditional running shoe during running, which can not only threaten good running economy, but can of course stage a foot, ankle, or knee injury. In the case of young kids running in traditional running shoes, ankle injury due to hyper-restrained MTP joint and midfoot motions may remain a key issue. One study found that children who ran in the traditional running shoe had the largest reductions, around 65% reductions in midfoot motions. The researchers also found that the MTP joint was intensively restrained and was prevented from acting as a windlass mechanism, making it harder for optimal elastic energy storage to be achieved during running, as compared to children who ran barefoot. The kids who ran barefoot, conversely, sustained greater levels of MTP joint and midfoot engagement, more coordinated movements of these foot structures. And what this engagement of the foot is designed to do is to help feed the arch and the Achilles tendon with greater elastic strain energy. Based on their findings, the researchers found that the immobilization of the MTP joint and the midfoot in children who ran in traditional running shoes essentially interfered with the windlass mechanics of the foot that would otherwise help fuel effective forward propulsion during running. In the case of running in traditional cushioned running shoes, there seemed to be a diminished capacity of the windlass mechanics in the foot, which may lessen the delivery of a springier stride, thereby creating a portal of inefficiency, to say the least. Essentially, the traditional running shoe tightly restricted key stability structures in the foot, preventing these structures from splaying out and doing their primitive job during running. As a consequence of the foot being jammed into a narrow, stiff, cushioned running shoe, the ankle joint may now be faced with a great deal of mechanical stress and may cause the ankle joint to buckle under intense running because the MTP joint and key midfoot structures are not really engaging at the rate that they should, thereby making it even more unlikely to avoid an ankle ligament injury when running in traditional running shoes as compared with running barefoot. From an energetic standpoint, these shoes may take an economical toll because, again, the MTP joint, the big toe joint, and midfoot structures were disengaged from fully spreading the transmission of elastic energy storage in the elastic structures of the foot, which are primarily the plantar fascia and the arch, which could be an energy drain that may cause your running efficiency to lose steam. To that end, the researchers also cautioned that because the traditional running shoe immobilized joints in the foot might increase mechanical work at adjacent joints to compensate for the loss of function or the loss of engagement of the MTP joint and the midfoot structures during running. Another unsurprising finding in the study was that the researchers found that children who ran in cushion-heeled running shoes displayed heel strike mechanics such as forefoot lifting or ankle dorsiflexion prior to and at touchdown, to which the long-term effects of this action of the foot appears to be linked to shin splints, because the constant forefoot lifting and forefoot smacking may burn out the muscles that line the top of the ankle and the shin. As for the kids who ran barefoot, they tended to not lift their forefoot, but rather their forefoot and ankle was more relaxed upon and at touchdown. This landing configuration of the foot helps set up to land more away from the heel, closer to the forefoot, which is a landing pattern you really want to aim for, because forefoot striking, especially during barefoot running, really does lay the groundwork for enhanced impact reduction. Overall, what's really motivating about this research is that barefoot running really unseeds the mechanical kinks imposed by running in traditional running shoes. And lastly, This research gives us another way to conceptualize about how we think about the safeness of traditional running shoes, especially when kids wear them. There's actually a lot to be concerned about with the suitability of traditional running shoes in their role in preventing running related injuries. This is why many researchers are beginning to applaud barefoot running, because barefoot running is probably one of the best forms of biomechanical recalibration that really helps realign mechanics in a more productive manner, but it also boosts engagement in areas of the foot thought to be responsible for balance stability, thereby producing significant improvements in balance control during running and walking. This is reason to be very optimistic about letting your kid go barefoot more often, because it really does have something to offer. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, where you will get more discussions on the evidence that raises concerns about the long-term consequences of wearing traditional running shoes. Thank you so much for listening and watching. Have fun out there on the roads and trails. Bye for now.